All right, welcome back to the Beast Game Podcast, and we will be talking about a legend. And that person is Stan Lee. He has passed away at the age of 95. Keith, how do you feel?
A little blown by it. I knew it was coming. He was 95 years old. I honestly couldn't see him going any further than his health was failing in the last few years, especially the last year or so. That kind of the reports going on, especially when he started talking about elder abuse. Someone was serving as his manager or whatever was maybe taking advantage of him. I'm a little blown by it. The one thing I did like later on in his life, in the last 10, 15 to 20 years or so, he's really gotten the credit he deserved. I mean, he was never going to get the money he should have gotten for what he's done, but he's gotten the credit he deserved. And so did Jack Kirby. I think people finally recognize that Stan Lee didn't create all those characters himself. It was also Jack Kirby. He definitely got his start in that, and I'm glad he lived to see his creations taken seriously. I think one of the big things that he had in the last few years, or for quite a while actually, like since the 80s, was that comic books was just like silly pastime. This was serious business, and this was something that people took to heart, took the lessons that they learned from it to heart. And for good or ill, no matter how controversial he was, considering that he was as big as the characters he created, to be honest with you. Dude saying Excelsior and stuff. I mean, he was the original hype man, popping up his own stuff. If anyone knew how to pitch something or like hype it up, you figured out how Stan Lee would do it. He wasn't the type of person who later in life was ashamed to have people take his work serious and stuff. He was Arnold Schwarzenegger, who embraced the caricature he created. He basically created all these iconic characters who literally were icons. And when he wasn't making money off of them, he branded himself. He was the publishing editor for Marvel Comics up until the 80s. And considering he's been involved with Marvel since the very beginning, I mean, it's crazy. He was synonymous with that stuff, and he always will be. So, good or ill, he'll be missed. I'll miss seeing him in the Marvel movies, kind of hearing about him and stuff like that. I won't miss him complaining about how he didn't see a dime of his Spider-Man money, but I'm hopeful he got over it, or at least now he's done with this. He doesn't have to worry about that anymore. He'll be remembered. I mean, he's left behind a legacy. I mean, the guy's a legend. It's a done deal. He's a legend, and he's synonymous with the characters he created, and he goes down with other literary giants who are just as famous as their creations. You're not going to know who made the Transformers. No one in DC, none of the creators from DC or the ones who created Batman or Superman, none of those guys were even nowhere near. They didn't embed themselves in the success of their creations as much as he did.
All right, so let's get some comments from James. Go ahead, James.
Still very sad. He was 95 years old. He lived a long life. We had to know it was coming, but still hard nonetheless. I was lucky enough to sit in on a panel that he's done when I went to one of my conventions I go to. And it was just so amazing to hear his creativity and his passion for the characters he created and all that. He will be missed. When I actually heard it, I thought it was a joke. You know how many times been like death hoax, someone died, Jackie Chan died or something like that. This time I was hoping it was the same thing, but deep down I kind of knew it was true because he was on the convention circuit quite often, and then he started canceling for health reasons. Sooner or later it's going to come, and unfortunately it was that day. He will be remembered. He's still loved. I can just imagine how they're going to do a tribute to him. And the thing about Stan Lee is, just say 100 years from now, his mark will still be around. That's what's so amazing. That all the characters he created, everything was just going to still be around. If you're going to go out, that's how you want to go out. You want to leave a mark on the world, and I believe that he's left a great mark on the world. You got to think about it. The characters he created are now movies making billions of dollars. And then years from now, they're going to probably remade again. It's going to continue to go on and on and on and on. And it's just going to be so amazing that his name will just go on forever. He will be missed. It's kind of upsetting, but you knew it was coming.
Go down his history of characters. Obviously, Spider-Man is maybe the most popular, but it's almost every character early on in the Marvel universe that he created or co-authored, maybe some with Jack Kirby and maybe some with people that never really got the recognition. But I grew up drawing comic books. Didn't read comic books, I just drew them. I generally drew more Marvel characters than anything else. Captain America, Hulk, Spider-Man. I remember always getting the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, and had a representation of Stan Lee even in that book. And that book is one of the iconic things of my growing up, my creativity. going through that book and drawing just about every character, muscle structures, how to draw faces, all that stuff. It's kind of sad. It's also kind of sad that the last movie that he was in, I guess physically, I'm pretty sure he might have done some other cameos for movies that aren't out yet, was Venom. Really did not have a lot to do with, but people respected him anyway to put him in that movie. It's kind of sad that, at least more recently, he's just been reduced to a meme. He shows up in a movie, says some line, and had his 15 minutes. A little bit more important than that. And
I think the most extensive cameo he had in the Marvel movie was, I thought one of the better ones was the one in Spider-Man Homecoming. I don't know why. Yeah. What about that was that it was just hilarious. It's like he fit into every one of those. And then in Guardians of the Galaxy, they kind of the whole Easter egg up there.
But he's a watcher.
And he was actually a watcher. He was auditioning, trying out to be one of the watchers. That's why he shows up everywhere. And I was just like, all right, that was a clever way of adding it. I don't know how that became just his shtick that he popped up. I think the first time he popped up in a Marvel movie was the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. He wasn't in the Hulk, I don't think.
I think he was in the Hulk.
No, he was in the Hulk. You're right.
Yeah, he came out with Lou Ferrigno.
I try to remember how that whole thing started, though. And they gave him an executive producer credit on every one of those movies except for Blade and yeah, that was it. I think Blade was the only one. Blade and maybe Ghost Rider. Because
he was also in the X-Men movies as well.
Yeah.
Did he pop up in the X-Men movies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to rewatch. So those things are hard to rewatch.
X-Men Last Stand.
Yeah, well, none of them. They not age well at all.
Stuff like Mallrats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Kevin Smith, yeah.
I think he also might have been in Daredevil.
He was in Daredevil, I think.
Oh, God.
Yeah, he was. He did pop up. He was the guy who he saved from walking across the street. Like, he created the X-Men. He and I think it was Steve Ditko created the X-Men, and he wrote it because it was around the same time of the civil rights movement.
Right.
And he wrote it specifically for that. He created this thing. He said, like, what do you take people with extraordinary gifts and make everyone hates them because they have those gifts? That's what he thought of that struggle was. So I think that's the magic he had, was that because all of his creations were grounded in some, not in reality, they were grounded in some sort of
relatable.
Exactly. They were related. Spider-Man remains the one superhero, like you think of a superhero you want to be like, oh, I want to be Batman, but I'll be happy. But no one wants to be Peter Parker. Batman, you can say, oh, you know what? Parents passed. I shed a tear and beat somebody up, but I'd be living a high life. I'd enjoy myself. Superman, come on now. Dude can fly, can't die, can't get hurt. Come on now. You'd be a bat. Come on. All right. And he kept that trend going, and it built from that. I mean, these are iconic. I mean, the characters he created in the 60s, they're still talked about today.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap this up. But, all right. So, just some wrap-up thoughts, words of wisdom, final thoughts.
Note to people who creative talent. Stan Lee was a guy who embraced his craft. While I joke and say he complained a lot about getting not so much cheated out of the money, but he created all those characters, and in a just world, he'd be a billionaire right now, just like George Lucas would be, because he was just as much the creator of them as George Lucas was the creator of Star Wars. When it didn't go his way, when it turned out that he wasn't going to get it, he didn't sit there and complain about it and start filing lawsuits and stuff. He stepped up and said, hey, I'm the guy who created this. Check it out. This is why I did it. He created a brand around himself that embraced what he did in the past. And like I said, good or ill, he was the guy who embraced it. Made me excited for comic books, made me excited for the medium. Sad to see him gone. Props out to when he was alive, and wherever he is, all the best, and I'll remember him always.
So the only thing I can say to those out there who are very creative, go ahead and just push yourself and let your creativity shine. Being creative is very important, and he was a very creative man. Very creative man, came up with icons that would never die, and is well respected just for his creativity. And he should inspire those who have that same type of creativity, things that they may think may not work at all, but still you should push and still try to express yourself the best way possible. Because you never know. You may create something that will be around forever, as Stan Lee has. And you left your mark on this world as Stanley Lee has. So if you feel that you are in the same vein, or just like you feel you want to express yourself, by all means, I believe you should. If anyone is a testament to that, that is Stan Lee. And that is why that this is very upsetting to me, because I'm a very creative person and came up with ideas like my own comic book characters, all that stuff. He's one of the reasons why I decided to do that. And plus, I also always want to escape into my own little world, my own creations and things like that. So rest in peace, Stan Lee. You will be missed and forever loved.
Big Mike couldn't be on the podcast, but I'm pretty sure he would say something ultimately sentimental because comic books are a big part of his life. So he was born in 1922. That is a very long life and a very creative life. And it seemed like he enjoyed life even to the point that he was still doing movies up until last year or this year. As everyone said, if you have creative energy, if you have ideas, if you have the ability to do something, but you're stuck at home saying, well, I can't do it because of these things, just go ahead and try. That's really all it is. And Excelsior, Beast Gang Podcast.